The meeting is now being recorded so that we'll be able to post it onto our website. So, Barbara?
Okay. We have 2 items of business that should be fairly quick. One is just to let people know that we have to elect our officers annually. So the election of officers will take place at the November meeting. And our website will have all the details of the positions and all the criteria, et cetera. Oh, go back a bit, Greg. Go back. There we go. So the important oh, we lost it again. There we go. The important point is that we are looking to fill a vacancy for secretary on our board. And I have a vested interest in that because I'm kind of acting secretary as well as treasurer while we don't have a person filling that role. If anybody wants to find out about what's involved in being the secretary, I suggest they get in touch with either Greg or me, and we can give them the lowdown. Nominations must be received 30 days before the election, and they can be done by email to any officer or through a contact us menu item on our website, and the nominations will close on October 12th, which is 30 days before our meeting. Okay. And now on to the second item of business, which is a financial update, briefly. We ended the year with money in the bank, over $6,000. We had revenue and we had expenses. Fortunately, our expenses were less than our revenue. Most of our cash relates to the Beautify San Jose grant of $5,000 that we got. And we also have money still remaining from our the donation that we received from our good friends at Grocery Outlet at the time of their opening. So that's why our cash balance is good. During this year, we haven't been able to hold the events that we would normally hold. National Night Out event, we were not on August 4th, we were not able to do because of COVID, and similarly a June barbecue that we'd planned, we were not able to do. So it's being a little difficult for us to actually spend the grant money. But we do expect to complete a native plant project for Los Paseos Park under the grant, because that doesn't involve a lot of people being in one place at one time. So we can parcel the workouts such that getting it done with social distancing is not going to be a problem. So that's all that I had.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Barbara. The Native Plants Project is going to be a fun one. It's over by the tennis courts. It'll be something I think we can do, like you said.
Yeah, the planting season is begins in October. So it's time to start picking the plants at this point, but we can't actually start planting until we get closer to when the rains come.
Speaking of parks, did you mention the shade structure at all? I was doing something trying to get.
Nope, I have not mentioned the shade structure.
The shade structure is going to be completed. There's going to be a kind of a ribbon ceremony on September 18th. They're asking some neighborhood residents to maybe make a short 20-second video to show how excited we are about this, and that would be shown at September 18th. One of our neighbors is out there right now with some children doing a video. So it's a long awaited. That slide system over there is quite hot in the summertime, and the shade is going to really alleviate that. I've talked to parents over there that don't even let their kids go over there because of that. That'll resolve some of that problem. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so District 2 update. Sergio is not available. Oh, I guess he is.
I am here.
There you are, Sergio. How you doing?
I'm in the kitchen cooking, so I'm not going to show you my face, but
Yeah,
you probably still have my face somewhere on there. Well, listen.
Show us your dish?
Well, yeah, it's nothing fancy. It's for my son. We like eating burritos. I'm making chorizo and eggs. Nothing too fancy. So I know we typically have, in the past, obviously Vanessa, but she's been out. She should be back in October, I believe, from having her baby, and they're very excited to have her back. So I'm going to give you just very, very high level type of stuff. Obviously, you just talked about the shade structure. There is a lot going on in the world, in our city, whether it's COVID, whether it's protests, whether it's just the downturn of the economy. The city, we're trying to do our best to maintain a lot of the essential services, but it continues to be an issue given that we're trying to protect a lot of the employees. Obviously, one thing that may come to mind as we're talking, and I'm happy to field any type of question you have, is related to the bridge housing communities that I think we're going to have a conversation about. I think you have James Stagey and Andrea Urton, I think, on the call. They're going to go over that. That's very important. Obviously, 2 locations. In my mind, we're doing our part in our district to house many of the folks that live in our area, and so very excited about that. There's a host of other things I could talk about. Let me just open it up for questions if there are any questions. If not, I can keep talking about different things, but I want to be respectful about people's opportunity to ask questions.
Sergio, can you update us on the garbage situation on Monterey and Santa Teresa, please? Good question. So if you drive, just to familiarize some folks, in case you haven't seen the disaster that is down Monterey Road, and just so you know, I've been contacted by the superintendent of Oak Grove Elementary School District, who happens to live in Morgan Hill. I've been in touch with the mayor of Morgan Hill, with some of the council members of Morgan Hill, and I recently had a meeting with the Department of Transportation, some of the other folks that are leading efforts around the city and cleaning up this particular areas. If you drive down past Bailey, you'll see, it looks like, I've equated it to it like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. There's burned out cars and just, it's a disaster. And so one of the challenges is that that is Union Pacific property. You will probably be reminded me saying that the fact that we were in the works of trying to get an agreement with Union Pacific, that is almost finalized. I had a discussion with the attorney's office today on how to finally complete that and move it forward. We've already been in contact with Union Pacific, and they're actually making their way down to that location. So, Greg, I'm not sure if you've talked to Lucas recently, so I'm not sure if I have the most up-to-date information, but it's expected that by second week of September or so, they should make their way down there, and that's going to be cleaned up in coordination with the city. There's some pallet company that is doing some work out there, and we suspect that they're allowing folks to just start camping out in that area. Obviously, there's cars and other such things. The other thing that we're doing is engaging the Open Space Authority, because they have an easement on some newly purchased city property out there in Coyote Valley. There's a house out there literally down the block, a dirt road by where this disaster is. And so we're trying to work with them to install a gate of some sort that would prevent vehicles from going in there. So I'm just as concerned as you are. We're doing everything we can to clean it up as soon as possible. The city's stretched with their resources, citywide, trying to clean up a lot of different hotspots. We stopped debating a lot of the encampments just for the sake of trying to not spread COVID more deeply into the homeless community. So some of these folks have just, put a stake down in this particular area. But I can assure you it's going to be clean. I've met with some of the property owners out there, the bait and tackle shop, and some of the other folks that lease some property out there for storage. Done a ride along, and I know full well what's going on out there. We're actually also in touch with some of the property owners out there with regard to putting up cameras to be able to catch some of these folks who are dumping things out there. So that's something very important. I've also instructed the Department of Transportation to insert some language into the the agreement with Union Pacific that's going to be signed soon, I hope, in which Union Pacific agrees to allow us to put cameras on their property, because that's where a lot of this is happening. And so they spend a lot of money cleaning this up, and I suspect that if we provided the enforcement component while they provided the cameras and the costs associated with those, that I think it'd be a good partnership to try to prevent some of the dumping down Monterey Road. And so
You know, I don't know if there's more specific questions. It's very much on my radar, and you should know that cleaning up Monterey Road and really making it the gateway that it should be is going to be one of my priorities in the next few years, in the next 4 years, to try to really improve that stretch of roadway that I feel has been abandoned for many, many years, long before I took office. But I think it's time that we bring the focus to bear on that stretch of roadway.
Sergio, Mary has her hand up, so I think she's a question, I think, pertaining, I don't know if this
Yes, Mary.
Hi, Sergio. Thank you, Karen. Hey, I'm just curious, and you guys might have covered this, Greg, in an email that I missed, but what's happening with the streets in Los Paseos, and what's the it looks like we're preparing for resurfacing, but maybe I'm being overly optimistic. So what's happening?
Yeah, so there will be the stretch of roadway from, I forget exactly if it starts at Los Paseos or I think it's Bernal, actually, down a little bit past Bailey, is going to be resurfaced. And I'm not sure if resurfaced or repaved, but it's going to get some treatment that it desperately needs. If you drive down that road, it's like a roller coaster, especially before you get to Bailey, that stretch by that big open space. And so
Right.
I expect that is going to be repaired and made to feel like a normal road. And that, in the timeline for that, I think it's, I don't think it's this year. I think it may be next year or this year. I got to check with Lucas. Unfortunately, he's not on the call today, but I'll check with my office and send you guys an update.
Okay, and in the neighborhood, maybe someone on the call knows more, but what's happening in the neighborhood?
So Sergio, yeah, there's some stuff being done inside the neighborhood. I think that's what she's more referring to.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You know what? I don't know exactly what streets. What I can tell you is there's certainly been a lot of money invested recently by the city to repair a lot of the neighborhood streets. Every now and then we get approvals coming through the city council, in which we approve these large contracts for, it seems to be hundreds of streets across the city. I wouldn't know exactly what streets off the top of my head, but we can certainly get you that information. And we can get you the level of detail where it would even show from X street to X street on this particular strip. And we have all that. It's just, I don't have it handy. But there is a lot of,
yeah. I have a little bit of an input on that. Please. I was talking to a fellow out there today, and I heard it's some sort of work on gas lines, because what they're doing there, Sergio, is it's like a 1 foot wide trench, a little bit away from the curb, and they're just going down the streets with this wide trench, and then they fill it back in with and they put the tar over it. So
okay. Well, when they do that, they're obligated to make sure it's in good repair and gets back to its original state. So there's standards that the city uses. So I suspect whatever work's being done for utilities or anything else, all that's going to be, it's going to be repaired and brought back to the way it was supposed to be. But there are other general paving work going on around the districts, around our district specifically.
Thank you. We'll get some more information, Mary. Sergio, any other questions?
Yes. Sergio? Any other questions?
Yeah. Do you have the Anderson Dam recorded Zoom meeting on your website so people can see what's going to start here in October?
Yeah, good question. So we did have that Anderson Dam Town Hall. I think it was attended by 40 or so individuals. I know many of you were on there. We committed to providing the recording and sharing it on social media. I think we're in the editing stages. I think my team's in the process of putting that together to put out a very clean version of it. It was all clean, but there's comments at the beginning. We're trying to just weed out some of those things, so that way it's a very clean version and very clean information that goes out. So I expect by early next week that should be going out. And I will tell my team. We talked about it today, and I know they were in the works of getting it all together to put out. So yes, it's coming.
Can you give us a 20,000 foot view of what's happening with Anderson Dam for those of us who couldn't make it?
Essentially it needs to have a seismic retrofit just for the safety. So they again, very 20,000 foot level. We don't want it to fail, and the valley water doesn't want it to fail. And so the assembly member in the area, Robert Rivas, has put forward some bills at the state level to expedite the permitting to try to get it done as quickly as possible. And so that is in effect what's happening. So we had the town hall to educate people as to why it's being done, how it's going to be done, the timeline, and you know, not to scare folks, but there was also a video that you'll see once we put that out that shows where the water would go. Some of it would go to Morgan Hill, but a lot of it would go in our neighborhoods all the way to downtown and all the way to El Viso. So there's a lot of water there, and so we just want to make sure that it's done, that the retrofit's done as quickly as possible and as safe as possible for the residents. So that was really the impetus for having the meeting. So it was a 30,000 foot level view of what's happening at the state level with regard to legislation at the federal level, and then what the end goal is. And so that's essentially what it was. Did that answer your question?
Yes, hi Sergio. This was Smitha and Sergio. I have a friend living downtown. She said her house might be flooded with the dam stuff. So
yeah. Well, that's why we thought it was important enough to have a town hall on it, just because we know, you know, it's a regional asset that has the potential to impact Morgan Hill and all parts of San Jose, especially District 2. And so that's why we did it, to try to bring some attention to it, because I think you hear little bits and pieces on the media, you know, in the news and such, but we thought it was important to give everyone more information. So I suspect when you view the video, it's going to answer, or the Zoom sort of video for the meeting, it's going to answer many questions. But if you have any additional questions, you can certainly reach out to our office and we'll get to the answers.
I had a question.
I have one
Yes.
I've been working with Lucas regarding the Bernal Way. That's the old Bernal Road that goes down towards the railroad tracks from the fire station. And I've sent some videos to him showing people climbing over that fence, and pretty nasty things happening here and there. So
Yes.
Lucas is working with Jim Urtball. I think you might know about that, but we'd like to get an update. And if they're going to say that they can't do it, I'd like to know why. And we need to get that wall raised.
Yeah. So you and I have talked about it. So what I've done is we're waiting for an update. I recently sent Jim Ortball, I would say maybe about a week ago or so, a little bit more than a week ago, a list of questions that we needed answered, and that was amongst some of the questions. And so he explained to me, he responded to my email telling me that he was farming it out to some of his staff, that we're going to be getting answers back to me as soon as possible. And so I hope within the next week, I told Lucas to give it a few more days. So early next week, I'll reach out again and touch base with him and make sure that they're providing us the information. But yeah, for sure. I don't have the answers just yet, but I'm very familiar with the area you're talking about. And I know Lucas is familiar as well. And for those people that don't know, actually, Greg, would you say that most folks are aware of the challenges associated with that wall, or do you want to share a little bit about it?
I know it's a city wall, but the challenges I've heard is it has to be earthquake proof if it's extended up higher. But no, maybe you can say some more about it, Sergio.
Yeah, well, it's a wall that I think, does it bump up against the tracks?
No, it's not against.
No. So, well, let me tell you this. It's a wall in which folks are easily climbing over and getting into the neighborhood or getting out of the neighborhood very easily, right? Yes. And so my sense in talking to you is that we just simply want to make sure that it doesn't provide ease of access for some folks that are trying to do things in the neighborhood that we don't want to see happen, right? Right. And so I think you and I talked about this some time back as well before I referred it to the Department of Transportation. And that gentleman, Jim Ortball, he's the director of the Department of Transportation for the city. And so, you know, my thought was, and I'm not sure if you and Lucas have talked about this a little bit more, but in addition, one option is certainly building the wall higher, but the other option maybe is at least on the side that doesn't face the neighborhood, maybe, I think it's dirt, correct? So maybe digging that a little deeper so folks can't climb over. I don't know. There may be different options, so we're waiting to hear back. But.
Okay. Well, I'll be working with you again further on that. Appreciate that.
For sure.
It's on your radar, and we don't want it to disappear.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
I had a question.
Yes.
In the recent blackouts that we've had, there are 2 stoplights on Santa Teresa one at Great Oaks, which is also vineyard, Great Oaks / vineyard, and one at just one block further this way from there. And those just go completely dark. And people just have no idea they're even crossing a cross street. There was one major accident on the first night when they were out, when the power was out, that resulted in at least one hospitalization. And we call and we say, hey, can you send somebody? I mean, if they even just put orange cones sort of along that, that crosswalk or something, a flashing light of some sort. I mean, there's a $10 solution, but they won't, for some reason, they won't send the police out. There's no flashing light of any kind. And you just watch it and you're like, okay, there's going to be another accident. And I think it was like 3 days.
Can you remind me,
whose responsibility that falls under?
It's the Department of Transportation. And so one of the things that, as I've often said on many meetings, that you all are the eyes and the ears of what's happening on the ground. So as I'm listening to you, I'm actually writing down some notes. So tell me again, which intersection?
Let's see, the one, it's along Santa Teresa. The one cross is, Great Oaks on one side and Vineyard on the other. And then the other cross is, what's the street that the DMV is on?
Martinvale.
Yeah, Martinvale. Martinvale's the other one. So those two intersections, Martinvale and Santa Teresa, and Great Oaks, Vineyard and Santa Teresa, just completely dark and cars just fly through, and a lot of near misses and some accidents.
Okay, I'm writing that down. So what I'll have, Lucas is the one in my office that is the main contact of the Department of Transportation, but we'll poke around on that and figure out exactly what's happening. So what you're saying is lights go out and they're just dark and no one's following sort of the rules of the road, and there's accidents.
Right. Well, people don't even know that they need to stop because there's no indication really at all. It's completely dark at night.
Okay.
Cars just drive through, not even realizing that,
And the lights aren't blinking red, right?
No.
To signify that it's a stop or anything, right?
Completely dark. That's why I said, even if you just put some reflective cones or something, people would know that at least there was an intersection.
Okay. We can, I'll have them reach out to them and then we'll be in touch. Is it okay if we reach out to Greg, or do you want us to reach out to you directly?
No, it's fine. They can reach out to Greg, or I'm happy if they call. In our next store, we keep, people are, comment, there's a sort of a string about this, and that is a fairly weak relay station or something. So it's not uncommon for that neighborhood to lose power, and those lights do at the same time.
Gina, I'll get information. I'll get it over to you somehow. Gina.
Yeah, Gina, and I got your name down too, so we'll your information. So I'll have Lucas get in touch with you guys.
Thank you.
What street do you live on, Gina?
I'm over in the avenue, the other side of Santa Teresa and North Creek.
Okay. I don't think I have your email address.
I think I have it because I think you registered via Eventbrite, correct, Gina?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I have it. I'll get it to you, Greg.
Thank you. Okay, well, Sergio, thank you very much.
Anytime. I'll be on the call a little bit, so if any other questions come about, I'm here.
Greg, can I say one more thing? Sorry, Mary. It's Mary.
Hi, Mary.
Sergio, I think I can speak on behalf of my neighbors. If you would be so kind as to convey our deep gratitude and thanks to the San Jose Fire Department for all of their sacrifice and ongoing work with the fires.
Yes.
From South San Jose down with our neighboring town of Morgan Hill, many of our local schools were threatened. And I just, if you would please convey to our firefighters, Sergio, on behalf of this neighborhood, our gratitude, that would be lovely.
I would be happy to do that. I've already expressed that a few times to the police, to the fire chief, but I will certainly do that again. Another thing you all can do is you have a fire station in your immediate area. I mean,
right.
It's wonderful if there was, if you thought, it was reason enough to do this, but, maybe just drop off some donuts or something as a neighborhood association or something like that. I think they'd very much appreciate that.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Anyway,
Thank
just
you.
small tokens of appreciation that go a long way, and they are doing a good job. So thank you for that. I'll tell them.
Hey, Sergio, this is the first time we've probably met. I want to say thanks for addressing the wall. It's hard to tell, but I don't want to walk away from my Wi-Fi too far, but that wall at the Bernal Road is right behind me. So I'm outside right here. So I appreciate the updates and excited to see what progress you guys make in terms of getting that built up.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We're gonna do what we can to make sure it's done appropriately and timely.
Yeah. There's just tons of garbage. I mean, people hop the wall, and invariably that becomes a big garbage can for people. I'm uncertain why, but I'm out there every week trying to keep the cul-de-sac clean, and so I grab my garbage can and some gloves and just go, pack up all the garbage that's out of there. So it's been staying somewhat nice, and I hope the neighborhood appreciates that too.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. Good. Thank you, Denny. Appreciate it.
And just doing my part. One general question, the San Jose, I think it's become San Jose 311 now. A lot of the features are on hold due to the pandemic. Is there in terms of turning things back online, like, reporting derelict vehicles that have been parked, abandoned vehicles, et cetera, like for that, is there a plan to get that back online, or is that just off until further notice?
I think that the plan is certainly to get it back online. I think one of the challenges that we have as a city, and every week the city manager gives us an update as to the response to COVID and the use of some essential employees, and quite frankly, what's happening at the city is many of the employees in many different departments are doing just different types of jobs. And so, for example, just to give you a perspective, the city of San Jose has taken on the role of feeding all of Santa Clara County. And so what that means is that we're providing food and administering some of these contracts all across the cities from Sunnyvale all the way to Gilroy. And so the folks that are staffing those programs come from some of these departments that would otherwise be doing some of that work. And so I think you're going to slowly see an easing back into the normal seat, to say it one way, but I don't have a timeline off the top of my head. I think the challenge is the unpredictability of where we are with this pandemic and some of the challenges it presents. And so obviously it will come back to normal, but I'd be lying if I knew the exact time. But it's very much present of mind for us, because we realize that in addition to doing all that good work and feeding the county and such, we need to make sure that we're stepping up and making sure that some of these other services that are so critical are taking place as well. And so I want you to rest assured that we're going to be asking those questions and making sure that we're coming online as quickly as possible.
Denny, I reported an abandoned vehicle over in the parking lot of the park, and I got the same response that the pandemic is holding things up. So I reported it about a month ago, later again, and the car is eventually gone, about 2 weeks after I reported again on the app you're talking about. So I just maybe if you do something, do it a couple of times.
All right. Thanks, Greg. And Greg, I appreciate you bringing the wall issue up to Sergio as well, and providing the update to the group. Thank you.
Welcome, Denny. All right. I think we got everything people want. Any other questions for Sergio before we go to Andrea's presentation? Thank you, Sergio.
You're welcome, Greg.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here tonight. So I am going to stop sharing my screen and let Andrea take over.
Okay. Okay, and I will go to share my screen. Can you all see it?
Yes.
Is it large enough?
It's not in slideshow mode. It could be larger if it was in slideshow mode.
Let me figure out how to
There
do
we
that.
go. There we go.
Okay, everybody. Well, thank you so much for having me here tonight. I appreciate you allowing my voice at the table. Let me, before I start to talk about this project, share with you a little bit about me and HomeFirst. I've been with the organization 6 years in January now. I think it's the best job I've ever had. I absolutely love it. and I'm the CEO for HomeFirst. I work with an amazing team. HomeFirst is the largest provider of homelessness services in the county, and we are focused solely on Santa Clara County. So we understand the homelessness issue, we understand the needs of our unhoused neighbors, and we work diligently to make sure that services are in place and that the neighborhoods we work in and operate in are also safe places for community as well. HomeFirst is a budget of about $37 million with 43 different programs, a focus on emergency shelter, but also all kinds of supportive services. We own and operate 4 transitional and permanent housing solutions for formerly homeless clients or homeless families. So we have a lot going on. We also partner very closely with James' office at the city. We have funding from several different sources, the City of San Jose, the Office of Supportive Housing at the county, and then the VA are our major funders. And then we have our own fundraising efforts to about $2 million a year that we do. We have a robust volunteer program that we would like to invite you all to if you ever want to get more involved with the site or HomeFirst. And our leadership team is always available to answer questions. So Karen has my ear, Greg knows how to get a hold of me, and they can share my email with you so that you have access to me as well. Any questions about the organization before I begin? Okay. So we are talking about Bernal and Monterey and the Rue Ferrari sites. This is our emergency interim housing solution. And I'm going to put my glasses on because I might have to do a little bit of reading. These sites were established in response to the pandemic. The city has developed emergency interim housing communities to help protect unhoused people from the disease, slow the spread of COVID-19, and expand the city's interim housing capacity after the emergency ends. So some of you might have heard of our bridge housing site that we have on Mawberry. That is 40 tiny sleeping cabins with shared amenities, full services for our formerly homeless folks there, and a step toward permanent housing. We've been very successful at that site. That's the site I invited you all to come visit before we had to unfortunately cut that off because of the pandemic. But it's been very successful. And so after the pandemic ends, these 2 sites will also become bridge housing sites. So all participants referred to this site will be offered, will be offered an initial 60-day stay in the program, and extensions may be granted on a case-by-case basis based on what's happening for the individual. The state and the county regarding the COVID-19 pandemic will also be considered when establishing a participant's length of stay in the program. Participants are selected on a referral basis only and must meet the required criteria. The site is operated by a team of HomeFirst staff, which includes resident advocates, which are responsible for site operations, case managers, which make sure that these people are working with case managers from other agencies if they have them, or providing that service themselves. We will also have mental health clinicians on site when a crisis happens or somebody needs some additional support. And then we also have an oversight team. We have just decided that our associate director for our supportive services program will be housed at this site on a daily basis. And so that's a big deal. They're going to get a very high level of oversight at this location. Bernal will serve up to 78 individuals. It's a single occupancy, so 1 person per cabin. And the the Rue Ferrari site will be for 120 people, and they have capacity for couples there. So we're really excited that people no longer have to be separated from their partners or husbands or wives. This site offers shared community space, and even though each cabin has its own bathroom, the shared spaces will be kitchen, laundry facilities, there'll be a smoking area, a computer lab, a dog run, picnic spaces and outdoor eating spaces, as well as a garden area. We found these amenities to be very popular at a bridge housing site. We have raised garden beds there, and they're fully used by the residents and deeply enjoyed. There will be on-site security 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We will have patrols as well as somebody stationed at the guard shack that will be able to monitor all comings and goings from the site. So the phases of this are several different move-in type phases. The vulnerable unhoused population will be the initial group offered occupancy. These are people who have been unhoused, who have multiple risk factors for COVID and have been staying in motels and hotels. Those will be the first group of people that will be moved into this site. The next transition period, as we move through this phase, will allow individuals, transition from COVID-19 response to a recovery stage. The EIH sites will accept individuals from interim shelters. So that's shelters like the BRC that we operate in San Jose, the Sunnyvale shelter, the Camden Community Center, and the Bascom centers. As those are closed, people from those sites will be transitioned over to this site. And finally, the final stage of this property is it will become, as I mentioned before, a bridge housing community. This phase is intended to serve as a short-term bridge housing solution for individuals working toward securing permanent housing through programs such as the Rapid Rehousing Program or permanent supportive housing. Unhoused adults will be selected for occupancy based on the eligibility criteria established by the city's housing department and HomeFirst as the operator. And so far that's working very well at the BHC project that we have on Mawberry. So a little bit about what our staff do. The resident advocates, as I mentioned, are responsible for all the site operations, the basic needs, checking people in, checking people out, making sure that things are running successfully and in a healthy manner for everyone. The case managers will provide direct support to the individual participants with one-on-one sessions and work with participants to create service plans, housing plans, so they can focus on shifting their situation and moving toward permanency. Again, these sites are meant to be interim, so we want people to come in, stay with us for 60, 90, maybe 120 days at the most, and then be permanently placed in the community where they belong. And finally, as I mentioned, the clinicians will focus on mental health, and we will also have KDAC services there, which is alcohol and drug abuse services if needed. The oversight team consists of a program manager who will be housed on site and there at least 5 days a week and available for emergencies after hours. Shift supervisors. So each shift around the clock, normally we have 3 shifts in a day. We have the day shift, we have a swing shift, and then we have a graveyard shift. Each one of those shifts will have a shift supervisor. So there is always somebody who is completely responsible for the comings and goings and what's happening on the site at all times. The program manager is responsible for the supervision of all staff, as well as the management of everything on site. Shift supervisors take on the overall management role when the program manager is not present. And then finally, we have a really great position that we're hoping we'll be able to liaison with all of you. We have a community engagement coordinator, and that person is responsible for overall community activities, engagement, and is supported by the development director, our chief development director, Lori Smith. This is the person, if you wanted to do an activity with the residents on site, you would connect with them. We have had offers from Rotary of doing barbecues at the BHC Mawberry site. They put together welcome kits for everybody with toiletries so people would have what they needed and handed those out. So there's all kinds of activities that can happen as well. Finally, we come to the security aspect. It's a contracted security company which will monitor a security kiosk 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They'll perform security checks at the checkpoint entry, as well as carrying out required health screenings. They will monitor the grounds, respond to staff requests for assistance regarding participant or visitor behavioral issues, or curb loitering issues around the site. Direct visitors to the EIH service office for check-in, and they'll collaborate with law enforcement as necessary. So again, the supportive services that we have happening on site, the resident advocates are the day-to-day operations, the case management support with reaching housing goals and resources needed The mental health, again, will support people in really working toward their mental health goals. And the community and engagement person will manage learning opportunities as well. What we have at the Marbury site that's been very successful is we've had facilitated not just lectures, but workshops where we've had people come in to teach them how to make inexpensive, healthy meals, how to do a resume, how to look for work online, even how to dress for a job opportunity, right? When you get interviewed, a lot of people lack those common basic skills. So we're really trying, again, the whole point is to prepare people for permanency in the community. Our partnerships. So we have several different opportunities for oversight and partnership with the community. The first oversight and support committee provide input and support for day-to-day operations. This group is led by HomeFirst and includes homeless service stakeholders, EIH residents, and official representatives from the city of San Jose. This group will meet monthly. The advisory group, which is something that some of you might want to look to join, will provide feedback on current operations, program practices, and the impact on the surrounding community. Made up of engaged stakeholders, such as all of you, neighboring residents, local business owners, partner agencies, and official representatives from the city of San Jose. This group will meet quarterly. And finally, we have the volunteer and donations. Volunteers can provide learning opportunities such as workshops and peer support groups. And there are various items that can be donated, sorry, it's been a long day, donated to directly benefit participants. So we've got quite a few opportunities for engaging with everyone. So let's talk about the eligibility criteria, because I know this is first and foremost on a lot of people's minds. So first of all, for the first site, Bernal and Monterey, you must be a single adult. So Rue Ferrari, you could be a couple. You have to be 18 years over, and you have to meet the HUD definition of being homeless. Referrals sent to EIH from the city of San Jose and Santa Clara County will be priority placement for those exiting motel and hotel placements through the COVID-19 hotline, and the other priority placement to those deemed high risk of complications to COVID. So we're using CARES dollars for a lot of these sites, federal dollars, to make sure that people are safe during the pandemic. People must not have a criminal conviction for arson. They must not have a criminal conviction for methamphetamine manufacturing, and they must not have a criminal conviction for 290, which is sexual assault offenses. So those people will not be moving into this neighborhood. So how long can someone stay with us? These are just some frequently asked questions I want to go through. All participants will be offered, again, a 60-day stay in the program. Extensions in 30-day increments will be granted on a case-by-case basis. So let's say somebody has been working with a case manager diligently, but at the end of 60 days, they still don't have the ability to pay rent and can't locate a unit. So we'd grant them another extension, and we work on increasing their income and then also a housing plan. Do participants have a curfew? So the people here living here are going to be adults just like you and I. The site is 24/7 operations. Program participants are free to come and go as they deem necessary, just like you or I would be. However, all EIH participants are required to abide by community guidelines and policies. Additionally, access to the site amenities, such as laundry and kitchen, may be restricted to separate operating hours and may vary by site. So quiet hours from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. daily are adhered to strictly. Will meals be provided daily to participants? Participants are responsible for their own meals. However, they will have access to a food pantry and a shared kitchen to prepare their meals on site. In addition, HomeFirst will work with partners to bring meals onto the site. So what's been very successful at the BHC Marbury site is we partnered with Cathedral of Faith. Jim Gallagher runs that place, and he's a lovely man, and he has a great pantry. And so he stocks the pantry at the Marbury site completely. So these people have access to really healthy food all the time so they can save their money. So when they're stably housed, they have a little bit of a cushion. So they're more likely to be successful in keeping their housing. So we'll probably do something very similar like that here. Are participants allowed to have pets? Yes, I rescue dogs. We're big pet people. A lot of our unhoused neighbors have loved ones that have 4 legs and lots of fur, and these are the only individuals they feel love them on the planet. So we can't take that from them. But the requirement is you can't obtain an animal after you've moved in. It has to be a pet that you had previously. If that's the case, we'll make sure that the animal is cared for. We'll make sure that they're receiving the proper medical attention via a vet, that they have food, and then that they're properly taken care of. At any point in time, if that is not the case, we will step in and intervene. If we are unable to mitigate that behavior, the animal will then be removed for the animal's safety. Can a participant have guests? Absolutely, they can. Again, these are grown adults. Each participant is permitted 1 guest or visitor at a time, which must be cleared by the HomeFirst staff and is required to check in with security. All visitors must exit the property by 10 p.m. each day, and they're not allowed before 8 a.m. Is there parking available on site? Yes, but the parking is limited. Spaces are available as a first come, first served basis, unless designated a parking space for special accommodation. Program participants will be provided with a permit that must be displayed on the vehicle at all times, and they must have a valid driver's license. Any visitors parking in the parking lot must display a visitor parking pass at all times.
I think she's fine.
Wanted to share this with you. This is a picture of the trailers being built. And they're all lined up, so there's multiple units in each one, as you can see. That is my dog. Sorry about that. This is another picture of the site. They're looking really cool now, by the way. They've got these really cool siding, these nice muted colors. Excuse me. My puppy, she's just crazy. This is another picture of the construction happening. Habitat is doing an excellent job on the build. This is our facilities director in the middle picture in the bathroom checking things out. So in the first photo, you see that hole below the window. That is going to be an air conditioner and a heater. Got a full-size window for exit if you ever need it. The bathroom is very small, as you can see to the far right photo, but it's got everything that's needed. And the space is clean with the high ceilings. It's well lit. So it should be very comfortable for folks. This is a pretty poor picture that we snagged of a diagram that the city gave us. But here you can see that the trailers are set up on one side with the shared amenities kind of in the middle and lots of foliage off to the back with some parking. So the site is looking really good. If you get a chance to kind of drive by and look in, you'll see that it's going to be a beautiful site. And please, finally, we are hiring. We're hiring for all of the positions I mentioned. We're hiring at a crazy rate. We pay at least a fair wage because we want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. We have a great benefits package with a 4% 401k matching plan. And we pay 50% of your spousal or children benefits. So we offer really good benefits to our employees. HomeFirst is a great place to work. So if you have family or friends who are looking or laid off because of COVID, please come see us. And I think, you need to write these down or take a picture of this with your phone. So our Director of Supportive Services is Beatrice Ramos. She is an amazing woman. She's been in the business for many years now. And she is not only a great communicator, a respectful human being, but will do everything within her power to make sure that this site these sites are successful. So feel free to call or email her if you see something untoward that you would like addressed. Like Karen reached out to me today about a shopping cart filled with someone's belongings. And so we sent our outreach team out there today to take care of that. The next name on there is Rene Ramirez. He is our Chief Operating Officer. Again, a great communicator, a really good listener, and a fabulous partner in the community. So feel free to drop him a line. I can be reached at A as in Apple, Urton, my last name, URTON, at homefirst.scc.org. And again, I am always available to field questions or just if you have concerns and want to share them with me. We're here and we want to help. So with that being said, I will stop sharing my screen and open this up for questions.
Andrea, I see one on the chat
Okay.
that's, hold on, let me find it. It says, and I'm not sure really how much this has to do with the BHC, but I'll go ahead and ask the question. It says, you said the person must not have all criminal records, etc. So how do you solve the problem of the population along Monterey Road? I think that's more of a general question.
That's a general question, and I can take a stab at it. This site is not meant for that population. So this site, being that it's in a neighborhood, is meant for somebody that's, not that none of those people from there will be coming in. Not all of those people on Monterey Road manufacture meth or have engaged in arson or are sex offenders. I'm in the encampments a lot myself, and I know quite a few people out there who are just normal working people like you and I. I myself, as a young adult and teenager, was homeless. So sometimes we just need a little support and we end up doing really good things. So this site is meant for people who need a hand up, who have fallen on hard times and are still very capable of moving forward with their lives. So those are the people that we're going to be putting in your community.
Can I add to that? Hi, Andrea. This is James.
Hey, James.
Hi, just want to add to that. So, I mean, I think that's a great question. So as Andrea said, you know, this site she described specifically, you know, the population that will be housed at this site. But one thing to remember is, you know, the city and the county and HomeFirst are doing a number of different things to address homelessness. And this is just one of our tools to do that. And so anything and everything we do to alleviate the entire system is going to help the entire system. So these individuals may not be housed at our EIH sites, but the folks that are at our EHC sites may open up shelter opportunities for other people who are out in the community, you know. So those are some of the things that we look at. One other thing is, Andrea, as she mentioned, her team also is in charge of doing most of the city's outreach. So having basically a home base out there on Monterey, you're probably going to see a lot more proactive outreach by Andrea's team. So a lot of those people are going to see a lot more of the on-site you know, outreach that you may not have gotten before. So just wanted to add that.
Perfect, James. Thank you.
Let's see, I don't see any. Anybody else have any questions?
So based on the 60 and 90 days, thank you for that thorough presentation. So what I heard was that 60 and 90 days, the occupants are intended to move out. How are they incentivized to meet that deadline? Because if it's going to just continue rolling over and over and over, then you know, there seems to be not a lot of motivation to make that happen.
That's a fabulous question. Thank you. And that's why it's on a case-by-case basis. So if we have somebody who is not participating in the program, not meeting with their case manager, not working toward a housing plan with successful exiting, then they will be exited from the program and they will end up going to a shelter or somewhere else. So this program is really set up for people who are motivated to change their position and are capable of doing that with some support. The other thing that is so challenging in this work is the availability of permanent housing, right? It's one of the reasons why these sites have had to be constructed, because we've got nowhere for people to be while we're waiting for these affordable housing to be built. So what we're doing is we're moving people on when we can, and sometimes it takes a little longer than others. So our team is pretty expert though at working with landlords and property managers. And so when there is a vacancy, they rent to our folks because we're there for our folks. So we will do mediation with the landlord. We will step in even after they've exited our services. We'll never just let somebody languish. If a landlord calls us and they're having a problem with somebody that we've placed there, we will step in and we will mediate and we will help out. So our landlords know that and they trust us. So we do have quite a stock of housing that we can access. If that answered your question.
Yeah, seems like it was just a case-by-case basis based on the case manager, and then that individual analyzes what's going on and decides whether they stay or they have to get going.
Yeah, and that's what the weekly supervision is about. So the manager meets with the staff every week, and the staff go over their cases and why people aren't being successful and why they're not. So it is a team approach. We use a milieu approach to our case management services. And if somebody is not being successful, they will be exited out. I can tell you that our length of stay at the BHC is 48 days. Okay. So that's pretty good success rate.
And just to add on to that statistic, I think Andrew's being a little modest. The BHC has a success rate of, Andrea, I think the last time I saw it, it was successfully exiting people to permanent house was about 78%.
Yes, that is correct.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That's some of the highest numbers around. Our veterans program is actually 84% success rate into permanent housing, with those vets a year later staying housed. So that's because that's the intense touch that we give the people we serve.
One thing I want to tie back to was I couldn't catch the name of the individual who asked, how does this impact the people under the Bernal Bridge, that whole area. That seems to be a revolving door of crime and theft and people camping out there. And I know that those are two separate groups, like what you said. And however, the proximity, the impact of that still affects the people in our neighborhoods. So is your plans solely based or focused on the people occupying that area? Or is it just at homelessness as a whole? Because that's also homelessness, if you will. It's not just within that community that you're rebuilding.
Correct. So like I said, we're the largest organization in Santa Clara County. We're also confined by our contracts. Our funders pay us, and they give us an outline of what they want us to accomplish for those dollars. We are a nonprofit, so we're not making money on these contracts. They're, for the most part, pretty much cost reimbursement. But each contract has a scope of work that we're allowed to do within it. Like our outreach team tells us what areas we can do outreach in. We partner with the city based on the number of responses a neighborhood gives, and then we do our visits for the outreach team based on that. So we have a whole continuum of care that we offer.
So just in terms of directing it back towards that, the community immediately outside of that new tiny homes area, you're saying that nothing can be done then to mitigate that or eliminate that seemingly encampment?
Well, I don't know if we have any. I think James answered it perfectly, is that we'll have our outreach team more focused on that area because of EIH. So they'll probably be getting a lot of services that they didn't in the past. But other than that, we don't have a program specifically designed for that corridor, no.
Okay.
And just to add on to what I had said before, so the outreach teams are really good about building trust and building relationships with those individuals that are out in those encampments. And oftentimes what they find is there are a lot of these individuals that would qualify or do qualify for this type of housing. So what that enables them to do is connect them to the right set of services, so that eventually, maybe not immediately, but eventually a lot of those individuals do end up making it into the system and through and into the interim or BHC housing. So again, it's a whole bunch of services that are tied together, and that's what you're going to see a lot more about out in that neighborhood is the outreach.
Okay, yeah, because I'm trying to tie that back to, if the intent is to prevent COVID transmission, and these camps are seemingly, they're literally across the street under the bridge. So housing, upwards of 40 people max at that new housing complex versus the numbers across the street. Are we trying to, the bigger picture, is that being met? So I'm struggling to connect the dots.
Well, we have a continuum of care. It starts with our outreach. It goes to emergency shelter. It then goes to supportive services. We have all kinds of focused services for veterans specifically. We have mental health and clinical services. And then we have interim housing and permanent and transitional housing. So we do offer a continuum of care. Have we reached every single person in the county? Probably not, but we serve around 7,000 individuals, families, and veterans a year. So the county's got 10,000 homeless people. We're at serving about 7,000 of them. I think we're doing a lot.
So,
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. So you mentioned this is going to be, the whole county's going to be using these facilities?
I believe so. It's a county referral system, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're all, San Jose we're all part of the county's continuum of care. So the majority of the homeless population that resides in Santa Clara County obviously is in San Jose. So in addition to serving all of the county's homeless residents, a good portion, as a matter of fact, the majority of the funding that provides for the services are from the county.
So I see a couple of questions here on the chat. One from Trish. What are current security and monitoring routes in adjacent neighborhoods?
James, do you have an answer for that one? I don't know what the routes will look like yet.
So in terms of the on-site 24/7 security, again, that's something that HomeFirst is going to manage, but they do have, you know, I don't know if Renee and B have, you know, finalized all that yet, but with the other BHC site, they've established an immediate area that on-site security does a patrol, just to make sure that everything is you know, safe and you know, nothing going on around the site. But it's not a significant area. Really the security is really for the site, both for the residents' safety and the surrounding community.
Okay. I think she was actually referring to more of the plan to kind of monitor the neighborhood, not necessarily security wise, but just in terms of changing, you know, what we discussed in that other meeting.
Yeah, you're talking about some of the coordinated services, I believe.
No, I think she's talking about, I think in one of the meetings there was a discussion on how you guys are you're already starting to kind of check out the neighborhoods around so that you have a baseline of what's going on in the neighborhood, and you'll be monitoring changes.
You're talking about, you're talking about enhanced services, which is,
okay, yeah.
And that's something that we had fully intended to incorporate into all of our BHC and emergency housing sites, our hotel motel sites that we have across the city, really kind of identifying what we would consider either hot spots or priority areas. Unfortunately, that was a general funded, you know, coordinated effort. And as COVID is hit, and as Sergio mentioned earlier, you know, the city is you know, facing a pretty significant budgetary, you know, challenge in the next year. So no guarantee on any kind of enhanced services. However, what the city is committed to is coordinated services. So what enhanced services were intended to do was be a little bit more proactive, as you had mentioned, Karen, kind of doing surveys around the neighborhood, identifying specific areas that we would proactively do things like graffiti abatement and you know, illegal parking, towing, and things like that. So with the coordinated services, and again, this is not my area of expertise, and not something I manage, but I've been on enough of these Zooms to articulate it a little bit. But the coordinated services is really just making sure that all of the different departments are speaking to each other, and making sure that if something is identified, that we address it as immediate as we can. And I think you saw an example of that when I think it was you, Karen, that reported a wall or a fence that was graffiti. And so we were able to immediately respond and make sure that that was addressed. So that is the kind of coordinated service that we'll continue to keep working on. Now, as far as like proactively going out, that's going to be challenging over the next years.
Okay.
Karen?
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
I asked James something. Like you said that Karen called in when there was that graffiti and it was taken away very, very quickly. A phone number, there's going to be a lot of the residents around here that are going around that corner and going back and forth, and they'll do your enhanced services for you, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
There's going to be one number that we can tell people to call that would address it, and so that we can put that out into the neighborhood, a number and a person. Or
I will get that for you and make sure I connect you up. That would be the Beautify SJ program. Olympia runs, and they coordinate also with our homeless response team as well. So they'll be the main point of contacts for that type of thing. And they are the ones that will help coordinate all of those services. So I don't have that number off the top of my, offhand, I should say, but I'll make sure that I get that to you, Greg, and you can distribute that to the group.
I did see a question where somebody thought they heard that the residents have to be out of their rooms during the day. That is not accurate. They can be in their rooms whenever they need to be in their rooms. It's up to them.
Did I miss that question? I didn't.
It came up on the chat. I just saw it pop up.
Oh, okay. I think I'm going in order. So here's another one. What does a criminal conviction for 290 sexual offense mean? That's one part of the question. And the second part of the question is, did you say no employee will be on site at night?
We have 24/7 staffing, period. Multiple staff will be on site 24/7 hours a day, 365 days a year. And basically a 290 is a sex offender. So anything from flashing somebody publicly to molesting somebody to vulgar, obscene, and sexually inappropriate, really bad behavior. So that is not allowed.
290 is the police code that it refers to.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
The world we live in.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions or hands at this time. So anybody have any additional?
I have a question. How long is this program, when you make the transition to BHC, Bridge Housing Communities, down the road apparently, how long will these two sites be in existence? And you'll continue the input and output of people. How long will that happen?
That's a really good question, Greg. We were able to build these sites under two very unique, one is a law, the other is an executive order. So under the governor's executive order, we were allowed to waive things like CEQA and some other, time challenging, laws. The other is Assembly Bill 2176, which allows us to build these in spite of potential zoning conflicts or certain codes that might interfere with us being able to build this emergency housing. So the city, but part of that wasn't just waiving laws and regulations. What it was the law allows the city of San Jose to create its own set of guidelines, building standards, and development standards. And so the city has done that. We've adopted an ordinance specifically for these types of emergency housing. And under that authority, that goes away in 2025. So that law will sunset in 2025. Now, I will say if homelessness is resolved in that period of time, then we'll be, packing these communities up and figuring out a reuse for the buildings. If not, and we see that this is a successful model, who knows, the state legislation may extend the bill beyond 2025. That is not something the city of San Jose can do or has the authority to do. That is something that the state legislator does.
I have a question. Andrea, I apologize if I missed it at the beginning, but did you go over the time frame of when people are going to be moving in to each of these sites?
No, we don't have it nailed down yet, as far as I know.
Do we have a ballpark? Like, is it this year, next year?
No, I can give you a pretty good idea. So Bernal, we're moving people in 3 phases. So phase 1, we anticipate within the next week, we'll start moving people in. Phase 2, we're looking at the next 2 weeks, and phase 3 between 3 and 4 weeks. So by the end of September, we will have the site fully occupied. As far as the Rue Ferrari site, we're looking at the end of September to start occupying that site.
Thank you.
I had a question. I think we are pretty sure that some of our homeless folks who've been around for years and have issues and stuff are not the likely candidates for this. We understand that. This is a transition for folks who, you know, and you have a tremendous success rate. You said 78% is really awesome. But the residents at this place are not likely, are likely to be sort of additional homeless to our area. And if 78% of them go on and get permanent housing, that's awesome. But do the other 22% end up kind of becoming our homeless?
Not necessarily. Those people will be given other options. We're hoping that as James said earlier, as space is made available in the congregate shelters, because people have moved into this site, if people need to move back to the congregate shelters, that's where they would go.
And also,
our goal is never to put more people on the street ever.
I think that's people's biggest fear in the neighborhood.
Yeah. And just to add, so part of that 22% also, I mean, Andrea's team does a exceptional job of tracking and reporting every single month, you know, what's going on in the communities. A lot of those people are people that move back in with their families. I think, you know, about 5 or 6% of those were people that moved back in with their families. Others were people that you know, chose, you know, they didn't like the rules, so they moved to you know, back into congregate shelter. So from what I recall in looking through the statistics, there was a very, very small number of people that were exited out to the street. And again, as Andrea said, that's the last resort we would ever want to see.
Where is the congregate housing that you're talking about?
The shelters, we have the Picardo Reception Center, which is on the corner of Little Orchard and Semino Avenue, next to the plant off of Kirtner. We have the Sunnyvale Shelter, currently operating the overnight warming location for at the Camden Community Center for families. Help me out, James, my brain is fried.
Oh, there are so many different small shelters throughout the city.
And South Hall has got how many people now? 150?
80, I think it was last time, but that fluctuates, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the big tent across the street from the convention center. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of, like James said, little shelters and large shelters around the area. We operate quite a few, but not all of them.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't it more common that if they were to go back out on the streets, they would go back to the neighborhood they had come from, wherever that is, generally speaking?
Generally speaking, that is the case. People tend to go back to wherever they were made homeless or where they have connections or family or friends. And that's one of the, you know, that's how encampments start, right? They want to be close to their friends. So you do get some of that.
Okay, I do see another question from Trish. If this is a successful model, how long will it take to determine if it is successful? And when will more BHC be started in other areas of San Jose?
Well, we've got the one on Marbury Street, and then we have another one on Felipe Road that's also in the process of being opened, and that is a little different than the Bernal and Rue Ferrari sites. Again, it's the 40 sleeping cabins with shared amenities. So those are the two that we've got slated that have opened and are getting ready to open. James, do you have any other plans for more?
Not right now. Really, you know, it really comes down to budget. We were very fortunate with these particular projects to be able to get all of the funding for these from either state grants or a combination of state and federal grants, as you had mentioned. And so right now the city is just going through a process of reevaluating, you know, cost savings from other programs and just seeing if there's enough money to cobble together another site. And then of course we always have the probably the biggest challenge, which is finding a land site that we can actually build these on. I mentioned the assembly bill that we were allowed to build under, and one of the requirements of that assembly bill is that it has to be either city-owned property or it has to be leased to the city for a long period of time. So, you know, you can imagine that there are some challenges with that.
And also, James, what about the Evans Lane? Isn't that in this group as well?
Yeah, that's, yeah. I'm sorry, I thought, yeah, Andrea did mention Rue Ferrari, and Evans Lane is in District 6. It is another one of these emergency interim housing sites. That particular site will have 49 units. That is a family site, so they will accommodate, you know, obviously, you know, more than 1 or 2 people per unit. So 49 units up to 120 individuals will be housed at that particular site.
And then don't we have another site that will be operated by PATH that's in the process for families?
That's the Evans Lane.
Okay,
site.
the Evans Lane. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
And the Patels are asking, kind of related, where do families with children go? Which I think you kind of just answered. But what about a single mother with a small child? Would they be allowed at the Evans Lane location?
They would be considered a family, and they would definitely be eligible to stay at the Evans Lane site.
Okay. Here's another question from Greg. Will these sites attract people to this area with hopes of getting in? Thus our area will have more people in need?
That's not how this is set up to work. It's a referral system only. So there's no point in people coming to the site. They will not be allowed on, and they won't be allowed to stay. So that's not how this, that's why we're taking referrals from a coordinated entry system. People will be chosen and they will be taken to the site.
And now that we've had Mayberry open for, you know, 6 months or so, we have some experience, and that has not been the issue with the Mayberry site. So.
Okay, here's another question from Lori Landis. What will you do about loitering in front of the grocery stores? And I think other people, I'm going to add to that, I think people are concerned about the gas station, loitering at the gas station across the street as well.
That's a hard one, because I don't know that you can necessarily, you know, that there's not necessarily a nexus between loitering at that gas station and the bridge housing site. I mean, I think, you know, Andrea's team has done an excellent job at the Mayberry site of monitoring the surrounding neighborhood, knowing the residents that are staying there. And we know that most of the residents that are staying at these bridge housing communities and these emergency housing communities, you know, we've created you know, a small community that they're welcome to stay 24/7. They're safe, they're secure. You know, there, as Andrea mentioned, there are on-site amenities. So we don't see the need for people to loiter outside of the community. Now, if there was somebody that was causing, you know, any problems, then, you know, obviously that's something that Andrea and her team would be notified of, and, you know, something that the city would work with them to try to address.
Okay, just to comment, the Mayberry site has a lot less people.
We do, but this site also has a lot more staff.
Then another question from the Patels, will the community have internet access?
Yes.
Yes.
We are also, just so you all know, one of the resources that we're connecting with, I don't know if James knows this yet, there's a group called Miracle Friends, and it's an organization that engages in a couple different activities. Number one is they work with a group of volunteers who offer to be a mentor or a sounding board for somebody who is unhoused for a year. And the homeless person, when they sign up for the program, is given a phone, and they're assigned a match, somebody who they think they would get along with. this program also engages in what's called family finding. So we have a group of these volunteers who are really highly technically trained, and they sit behind a computer all day looking for matches and looking for family that this individual might have. And then they help connect this person to family. So it takes sometimes a long time, sometimes not long at all. But through those bridges, we're hoping that a lot of people will be able to be exited to go live with family. The program's been very successful, and we look forward to bringing it to these sites.
I hadn't heard that. That's a great program.
Yeah, we just connected a couple of weeks ago, James. I was really excited to meet their CEO, and we met and just figured it's a very synergistic mission, and so we've got a partner.
That's great. That's great.
So Lori is saying both of these things are really great. What are they called? So one's Family Finder. What's the other one?
So the group is called Miracle Friends. That's the name of the agency.
I just popped in the URL in the chat.
Okay.
They do what's called family finding, which is an actual practice.
Oh, okay.
When I worked with foster care youth, that's what we used to do. We'd engage in family finding to find the youth's family so that they didn't have to live in the system. They could go live with an aunt or a cousin or someone.
Okay, I'm not.
Question. There are, heard the stories that there's like 7,000 people in Santa Clara County. And we're going to be addressing a couple hundred here. And then, so you said that the average length of stay is roughly 40 days or 41 days, something like that, or 48 days. So in the course of a year, how many people have you figured out will go through this process of being set up into the neighborhoods? And so over a period of 5 years, you're going to probably have 1,000 or more that you've helped, I think. Have you? What's your comment on that kind of discussion?
I would hope that there would be lots of people exited to permanency and successfully housed through this program. That's why the city is spending the money to do it. I think it's a great solution. The other challenge that we have as homeless providers, when we've got a rapid rehousing program, let's say we've got somebody holding a subsidy. So the city has said they're going to help you pay for your rent for a year. But these people are living in encampments. So they're transitional, they're mobile, they're transient. They're really hard to find. If they're placed in like the Bernal site, we know exactly where they are. A unit comes up for them, we can get them, and with several days, they are moved into a permanent home. That's a success that we're looking to have at this site.
And to put a little bit of context on the numbers, between the 3 emergency interim housing sites that we're in the process of building now and the 2 bridge housing sites, we have close to 450 units altogether, or not units, 450 individuals at one time that will be housed. And then, as you talked about, even if our success rate was just 6 months, that would be almost 1,000 people in a year that we would be able to transition into permanent housing. And again, this is just one of many different types of solutions that we have to address homelessness. So, that's where the hope is that we can continue to keep making strides on all the different, types of solutions that we're looking at.
So Teresa mentioned in the chat a couple comments. She said she heard that Comcast is going to provide some IT training for homeless. Will they offer services at the Bernal site?
So they haven't offered that yet, but we're working on them. They have offered those services for both the Felipe and the Mayberry site. We are getting a Comcast service at all the 3 of the emergency interim housing sites. So we're hoping that they can bring some of those services in as well. But Andrea and her team have done a really good job too of doing a lot of outreach and networking to bring in a lot of free training from other resources as well. So there is definitely no lack of resources in that area.
Yeah, and staff will show people how to use tech if they need it. We have a lot of really techie young people working for us. And if we have to bring in volunteers to do workshops, we will do that as well. But the whole point of having multiple different types of staff on site is that we'll be able to meet their needs. If they need help with the resume, we can sit down and help them with a resume. So we will offer that kind of in-depth training no matter what the need is.
And then the Patels mentioned also, it seems that if people are safe and have a place to stay, it reduces the trauma and other issues that might complicate their path out of homelessness.
Yes. Yes, that is 100% correct. Being homeless is extremely traumatizing, especially if you're a woman. I heard this many years ago. I need to see where it's at now, but within 4 hours of becoming homeless, a woman is either inappropriately asked for sex or sexually assaulted. It's scary, it's dangerous, and it's hard. So yes, a door that locks with your stuff in it, that's clean and safe with food and people who care about you to help you if you need something, it's beyond a blessing for these folks.
Yeah, and many of you have heard of the housing first model, which is what we all really work around in terms of the type of systems that we try to create. And really the premise of that is once you stabilize somebody or they have a stable environment to feel safe and secure, you can deal with any of the other issues that they might have, any of the other challenges that they might have in their life, whether it's, a mental illness, and there are ranging levels of mental illness, whether it's an addiction or whether it's just underemployment, which is a significant number of the individuals that we work with. It's not even that they don't have jobs. It's just that their jobs don't always allow them to pay the type of rent that's required here in Santa Clara County.
Okay, and Alan mentioned or asked a question, is there a facility by which the community can report individuals claiming to be part of the BHC but are just panhandling? The point would be twofold: to protect the integrity of the program and identify those abusing the system or program.
Absolutely, that's a fabulous question. And we want to know if the people we're serving and our residents are abusing the system and creating problems in the community. So the name Beatrice Ramos that I showed you on the screen, please send her an email or call her. You would also be able to stop by the site, and you could ask to speak with a manager on duty. And if you knew the name of that individual or had a picture of that individual, you could say, hey, this person is panhandling down the street. Can you please put a stop to that? We'd be more than happy to step in and manage that situation, because that would violate one of the rules for living there.
And the housing department will go ahead and ensure that we have all the contact information on our websites as well, so that if somebody comes and looks on our website, they can contact any one of the housing sites.
So Andrea, speaking of rules, can you just briefly go over some of the other rules that the people have to agree to live there?
Yeah, no drugs, obviously, on site. I talked about the guests already, talked about the pets already. Again, these people are grown-ups, so we're anticipating that they will act as such. So as far as the rules go, we observe the quiet hours. It's, no cooking in your room, obviously. We don't encourage people to eat in their rooms. Everything has to be kept clean, bug-free, litter-free. You have to participate in the site if you're going to be staying there. So, you have to help pick up after yourself. You have to be respectful to the other residents and to the staff. No loud music, basic rules that you'd see anywhere. I know we have them drafted because we have the rules for the BHC already. It's part of the operations manual.
Okay.
I could share them if you wanted me to.
It probably would be a good idea, because we get asked that question a lot. And speaking of, participating in the community, I heard some really weird rumor that I was like, I don't think this is true, but somebody said on Nextdoor that there was a program by which these residents were specifically going to be working with some veterinary clinic in Morgan Hill, and I didn't think so.
So maybe what they're referring to is we are one of the only shelters in California that allows dogs. And so to that end, or pets in general, because we have a kennel at the BRC where people can keep their animal, we have food. We also connect them to free veterinary services. So maybe that's what this is we do connect our residents to make sure that their animals have the proper care. So we do connect them to the San Jose SPCA, who does a lot of the spay and neutering for us. And I believe there's another vet who volunteers time. So that might be what they were referring.
Well, they really twisted that if that's what they were referring to, but yeah, it could be.
If not, I haven't heard of anything. Maybe somebody was saying they wanted to.
Yeah, because it was more like they have to do this. And I was like, that
no, they don't.
Sound right.
Absolutely not.
So here's another, how do you ensure cleanliness of the cabins?
We do visits. We do regular pop-ins. We have a key. We let people know we're doing it, and we come in and we inspect. And if it's not what we need it to be, we outline it with them, tell them what they have to do to improve, and we make them make the changes. If they refuse, then it's not a good placement, and we would exit them to another opportunity.
Okay. Where do they get money for food?
A lot of the folks that we serve are on disability. Some of them have jobs. Some of them, are retired and have a regular stipend that they receive. And some of these folks don't have an income. And that's one of the reasons why we'll keep the pantry stocked. Everybody will have access to healthy food whenever they want it.
If communal dining is encouraged, how is social distancing happening? What if a resident has symptoms of illness like COVID, and will residents be getting medical care on site?
Those are fabulous questions. So yes, temperatures will be taken daily as people come and go from the site. We do that at all of our locations already. Our facilities director, Elizabeth Macapanpan, is trained in infectious disease and control. Believe it or not, we got so lucky with that one. We have very rigid social distancing requirements. There will only be so many people allowed in the dining area that can be socially safe. Staff remind people to socially distance. We have PPE available for all staff and all residents. Residents will be encouraged to sanitize their hands. The temperature things we have are actually like little iPads, and you don't even have to touch it. You just walk up to it. So it's not required to have a person operate them. And then we have hand sanitizing stations actually everywhere. So we've got a lot of things in place. If somebody does become symptomatic, they will be isolated immediately and not allowed into the other spaces. They have a bathroom, their meals would be delivered to them in their cabin, and they would have to stay there until they were symptom-free. We also do have a partnership with the Valley Homeless Health Program, VHHP. They have a clinic at our BRC shelter. Those staff will be coming on site to provide medical care if needed.
Let's say somebody, because there's another question, will temperatures be taken daily? Let's say somebody stays in their room all day. Will their temperature be taken, or just only if they're going into the common areas?
Only if they if they stay in their room all day, we're not going there to take their temperature. But the second they leave and they want to go to a common area, their temperature will be taken.
Okay, this is an interesting question from Teresa. Andrea mentioned at the beginning that HomeFirst needs people to hire. Would you hire the residents if they qualify and want to work?
We have actually been getting inundated with unhoused resumes, people who have stayed at our locations and want to work. So we kind of revamped our policy. What we've decided to do is allow people who are formerly unhoused to work at HomeFirst, but they can't work at the site they live. So we're trying to keep it as clean as possible, and we don't want people to get, drunk with power, So that's how we're mitigating it. So far, it's been really successful. We've had a couple of great hires, and at the end of the day, if we can be part of the solution and make sure that somebody has got a stable income and help house them, better yet.
Great. Well, we're getting quite a bit past our time. So if there, we might be able to take one more question if anybody has anything. Otherwise, I think we should let these guys who've been very gracious to come and give us all this information. We really appreciate James and Andrea. Was there anybody else from the city on tonight?
I have no idea.
Just James, I think.
Yes.
Well, I do have one question, and perhaps this can be shared down the road, perhaps an email or PowerPoint of some sort. I'm curious to see what the macro impacts are. There's a lot of good questions in terms of focusing on the welfare of the occupants. I like to hear what type of studies that you've done in terms of how it impacts the permanent residents, the taxpayers of the community. So I know that's a much longer discussion, and I come off sounding like a complete jerk, kind of feeling like asking that when you guys are totally trying to help all the needy. So I hope I don't come off as just, very one-sided in that question. So,
Denny, you sound like a concerned resident is what you sound like. And I understand the question. I get it all the time. Please don't feel bad for asking it. So right now at our Mulberry site, we have had no negative impacts to the community, 0. It hasn't lowered property values in any way. It's a beautiful site. It's enhanced the neighborhood. If anything, it's brought security to a neighborhood that didn't have it. So there have been no encampments. There have been no incidences in the community that have been related to the residents from this site. There has been 0 negative impact to date. And that's been 6 months of operations. So I openly share that with you. And we are anticipating the exact same response here.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Can I add a comment? This is really helpful. It I think mitigates a lot of the fears people have. And people refer to these construction as an encampment, which is exactly what you're trying to avoid the need for encampments. Do you have a central sort of website where you might have like this PowerPoint and more information that we can share in the store group?
We're actually working on our website right now, so it's not great. I sent this to Karen already, and she can share it with you all. And then I can attend another meeting if there's questions that come up. I'm in your community, so I'm available. Also, you can email me questions and I can answer them, or my team can. So, we're very much attached to this community, so I'm completely available.
Just to add to that, the City of San Jose Housing Department website. So if you go to the city website and then you click on the housing link and then you go to homelessness response, there's a tab. We have a location where we have bridge housing information. And so in addition to all of the status of the projects, we have frequently asked questions that are on there that answer a lot of the questions that were asked tonight. We're always improving on those and adding to that. So that's also another resource you can go to.
And Andrea, is it appropriate for me to share this on Nextdoor, or do you prefer not?
I don't have a preference, James. I'm not thinking clearly. It's almost 9 o'clock. So what do you think? Is it okay to share?
Yeah, I would.
I've had not a great relationship with Nextdoor because people skew and they take the facts and make them something that they want them to be instead of what they are. And I've personally been attacked quite a bit on Nextdoor because of what I do for a living. I'm fine if you want to share it. I will just ignore the response.
Yeah, there you go. My view is sort of whenever there's change, whenever people have to deal with change, the number one thing they need is information.
Yeah,
I agree. You're absolutely right, Gina.
So I think this is really helpful.
Okay, so good, share it then. Let's alleviate some of the fear, because what I hear when I talk to groups of people like this are the fear of what's going to happen to my family, my community, my home. What is the impact for me? And so if we can answer that with fact, great, let's do it.
And they're still thinking there are no, because of that whole conversation about enhanced services and them not understanding what enhanced services are, they keep saying they aren't even going to provide these people any services. That's what they think. So I think
that PowerPoint will address that. Yes.
Right, exactly.
And you can also direct them to the FAQ because there's a lot of the questions that are answered on there as well.
Okay.
The PowerPoint might lead to a future meeting with more questions as we see the responses to it. And thank you, Andrea, for saying that you would meet us again, and hopefully.
Gladly.
Appreciate you.
Gladly.
Yeah, so Lori's saying, yes, I thought there was no money for services. There's the budget is not there for enhanced services, which are kind of more surrounding, I don't even know what we're going to be missing out, because basically you're saying you're going to still deal with graffiti. You're going to still be dealing with like the report that I put with the cart that's in an inappropriate place. You're still going to be dealing with those things. So I'm not really sure what we aren't getting with the enhanced services.
The only thing you're not getting, like I said, the enhanced services was really a proactive approach, in really going into the neighborhoods and doing a deeper dive into the statistics, of like where graffiti is and things like that. So it was just really a more proactive approach. Whereas, the coordinated approach is a little bit more reactive.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so somebody else mentioned that the mayor in the last meeting told us there was no money for services. He said there was no money for enhanced services. Stress that, enhanced services, which is a different thing than services to the individuals that are going to be living there.
The way I remember enhanced services is they showed a map of the roads that somebody's going to drive along routinely and go out and see if just something's happening along this road in the areas, just to see if bad things are starting to happen. And like I said earlier, I think we'll let you know about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
One last clarification on the services. Just a lot of people, you get a message pretty regularly about the city's budget and the general fund and shortfalls. But I want to assure everybody that the funding that is used to not only construct these housing units, but what funds Andrea and her team services are state and federal grants that are specific to these types of services. So we couldn't use them for anything else except for homeless services. And so we have the funding for this.
Oh, and then the Patels just have another comment that at an earlier meeting, Captain L said her officers would definitely be patrolling and making sure that things are going as they should be. So that's just their added kind of unofficial service, so to speak.
We work very closely with San Jose PD.
Yeah. So I think you guys, we should end it so that these guys can get on with their evenings.
Dinner.
Sorry. Our meetings always go long and we have lots of questions, but we do appreciate you taking the time and staying late and answering all these questions. I think it was really helpful.
Very well.
No worries.
I look forward to meeting with you all again soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Bye, James.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg and Karen, for
Okay, bye.
setting this up, and Barb.
If you want to hang around, I'll leave the meeting going if you want to chit chat about anything. So.
Are we going to do something as a neighborhood for the fire department? I'd love to be part of that. I know we talked about it earlier as well.
It's funny. I saw on TV this lady that was baking cookies. Did you see that article, that story? She baked like massively dozens of cookies and took them to all the different fire departments in her area. And I'm like, well, that's really cool, but I heard you're not supposed to do that and that they won't accept them. So,
yeah.
It was like, okay, I'm not sure. I would love to do that. To bring some homemade bread or some homemade, zucchini bread would be great. I have lots of zucchini right now, but I'm not sure how appropriate that is.
I heard that the fire department accepted that graciously. Some people took some stuff over there, and eating food, you can't get coronavirus by eating food, I don't think.
Oh, I don't think they've worried about coronavirus. I think there's just a long-standing, just people are more careful about homemade food nowadays, that you just don't know who you're getting it from, let alone during coronavirus.
I brought them a box of chocolates one time. You know.
Yeah, but that's store-bought. That's the difference. That's packaged store-bought stuff. So we could either do something like that.
Yeah.
I brought donuts once and got some comments about how they were trying not to eat that kind of stuff.
I was thinking that might be an issue because they have to stay fit. So
we need to think about whether there's, and I think probably something commercial. Actually, one thing that you can do is we could go to a local commercial place and get, you know, a number of plates of Chinese food from the Golden House, or, you know, something like that.
Or what about this? What about we just chip in and contribute to a DoorDash run, and, you know, they can use it for whatever they want.
yeah.
You know, they can, or we work with Nick the Greek or somebody over there that's also helping one of our neighborhood restaurants, and we kind of arrange something like, you know, I want them to have a say in what they get. You know, like we could say, okay, you know, we're paying for their dinner tonight, and then they contact them and order what they want for the evening. That way they get something nice and they get what they want, and we've done something nice, and we're helping a local business as well as them.
Maybe we could host a dinner for them once a month or something along those lines.
Kind of like Feed the Heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like we were, man, when COVID first started, at the health trust, we were getting lunch. I mean, I was having trouble like getting, because a lot of people weren't there, and so I was having trouble doling out the lunches. So it's kind of the same idea. We could arrange something like that. In fact, that I don't know if that what do you call it, program is still around, Feed the Heroes, but I could look into it, and they might have a mechanism to do just what we're talking about.
It'd be nice to ask them what would work for them, you know, because you don't want to be, especially right now when everyone's wanting to do something, you don't want to be just piling them with food they can't use, for example. So
right.
Barbara mentioned, I think she's close by, and maybe find out what they would like.
Yeah.
I think.
Barbara, you want to go over there and talk to them about this? How do you propose we?
Barbara seems to have left.
She's reconnecting. There we go.
Yeah, my computer froze.
We were just wondering if you wanted to talk with the fire station folks and see what they would like, because we don't want to pile more food on them if they already have.
It's only half a block away. I'll stroll over and ask, do they have a favorite place, you know, that they like, and, you know, something like Nick the Greek or Fuki or Golden House or.
Keys is really nice.
Well, that's not as local. I would rather
than that.
I'd rather help one of our neighborhood businesses.
Or the 5-star pizza, or, you know.
Yeah. Anything in the 2 shopping centers that we you know, that we live by would be great.
I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay.